Hello, dear friends. Today we are also working with Sergei Arkadьевич. The voiceover asks me questions. I give you the floor. Hello, dear listeners and viewers. Together with Natalia Vladimirovna, we wanted to devote today's program to issues related to the development of our future, the development of children. This topic is probably the most acute now for everyone who gave birth and gave a new life that came into this world. Everyone would like happiness for their children. In this challenging time, it's really hard enough to do. So, what recommendations and perhaps the most important points, Natalia Vladimirovna, could you give to our viewers to help in their parenting? Thank you. This question in my practice sounds very often. And in almost every course that I conduct for my students, we pay a lot of attention to this issue. But still, I want to tell the audience where to start raising a child. Raising a child must begin at conception. Depending on how the mother carries the child, what she thinks about, what lifestyle she leads, what she feels, how she reacts to certain events and situations, and how elevated or destroyed she is inside, the fetus is formed correctly or incorrectly, and his psyche is formed. It already starts in the womb. Therefore, children must be properly conceived, properly nurtured, given birth, and properly educated. And this is the greatest work. If you want a child, you must always be responsible and conscious, realizing that this is very serious work, a work in which you do not belong to yourself. You belong to that little creature that you gave life to. And as this little creature grows, it needs even more attention. And here are my tips and advice. First, friends, always try to be an example for your children. Always try to give them as much attention as possible. And do everything so that your children absorb the social life of exemplary right parents, parents who love each other, respect each other, and who give their child as much attention as he needs. We know with you that a new time has come and new children are being born with high energy, high abilities, opportunities, a certain high state of mind, and extrasensory abilities. Many children are born with psychic abilities. Their high energy itself initially activates the centers of the brain of these little babies and opens up their abilities. And these are special children who need special attention. Of course, since parents are older and are the leaders, parents should be an order of magnitude higher than small children, which means they themselves should develop spiritually and be an example to these children in everything, understanding that children, they hear everything, listen, and copy absolutely everything. The very process of bearing a child requires parents to have a healthy lifestyle and proper nutrition. It is necessary to breathe fresh air and eat the right food that does not poison the body, like Coca-Cola or Fanta or some other poison that cleans pipes, but vice versa, fills the mother's body and hence the baby's body with useful necessary enzymes and substances. That is, my friend, in order to have a good result, you need to give it a lot of work, attention, and efforts. Only then will the children be correct, born correctly, and in the correct internal state, and it will be much easier for you to raise them. But even when they are already born healthy, the most important thing here is also to continue to protect them from various processes that deprive them of healthy immunity and a healthy state of life. And we see it with you already now, what kind of experiments are being carried out on children and how everything is very difficult. Natalia Vladimirovna, how should adults, grandparents, mothers and fathers behave? What kind of environment should be in the family? How and from whom do children take an example? Who do they want to imitate? Do they feel who is the leader in the family? Tell us about family relationships so that the child grows up correctly. There must be respect between people. The younger ones are simply obliged to respect older people, grandfathers and grandmothers, and give them attention, respect, and listen to their advice and recommendations. Both grandfathers and grandmothers need to be an example for their children and, of course, for their grandchildren. This is the first. Concerning parents, the relationship between parents is the basis of a healthy psyche and the correct social adaptive process of a child. And probably you all remember there was such a documentary about a girl who grew up in a doghouse. That is, she was raised by dogs. She was such a dog person, that is, it was impossible to adapt her to social human life. In the early 90s, 8-year-old Oksana Malaya from a small village became famous throughout the former Soviet Union. The discovery of the girl, Mowgli, who was raised by dogs, was then told by all the media without exception. Oksana deftly ran on all fours, barked, howled, growled, and even bit. Oksana was born in 1983 in the village of Novaya Blagoveshchenska. At the age of 2 or 3 years, her drunken father and mother simply forgot her on the street. In search of warmth and protection, their daughter climbed into the doghouse located in the courtyard of the house and fell asleep, cuddling up to a mongrel named Naida. Over the past 5 or 6 years, Oksana Malaya has practically lived with animals. She shared with the dog not only a roof over her head but also a modest ration. In addition, Oksana adopted many habits from the dog. She bit, lapped from a bowl, and even caught fleas with her teeth. In this state, Oksana was found by guardianship officers, and they were shocked. Here is a living example for you, how the programs of the animal were activated in a person. Although a human being was born, she had to be upright on 2 legs, but this girl crawled on her feet and her hands, that is, she could not walk straight. Here is an example of how a child copies everything that he sees around him. So she lived with dogs and she became a dog. It is the same in the family. If parents respect each other, kiss, hug, smile at each other, understand, and gently answer each other, the child looks at these relationships and does not have mental breakdowns. That is, he is not aggressive and he does not fall into a depressive state. Because when parents quarrel, these low destructive aggressive vibrations are reflected on the child and also destroy him, causing even a painful condition. The child starts to have a headache, or the arms, legs, or stomach begin to hurt, it does not matter. But all the destructive emotional outbursts and quarrels of his parents are reflected in the child. This must not be forgotten. Therefore, you need to create the right families, get married right, and live together right. If you need to part, it also should be done right. Everything in life needs to be done right. Now in the world, there are a lot of such tendencies that give young, immature children some extra opportunities in terms of rights, that a minor child can sue his parents. I don't know if he can put them in jail, but in any case, he can bring great trouble to his parents, believing that he is right in some matters. What is your opinion on this matter? At what age does a child really become independent? A child becomes independent at the age of 18, although even then he remains a child in his mind and experience. I can say with full responsibility that such rules and laws are being introduced in order to completely destroy the morality and moral values of human consciousness and human life, which in turn leads humanity to complete degradation and complete annihilation and destruction. Certain people, and maybe not quite people, created for this very purpose, to destroy people. Because we already know that according to the laws of physics, a child takes an example from adults. If a child knows from childhood that he is neither a girl nor a boy, and it is not clear what he is, he or she or it, and he knows that he dominates his parents, it is clear that such a child will live in the process of disobedience. That is, parents will not serve as an example for him. And since this already exists legally, this indicates that humanity is completely degrading, and we can say it destroys itself. This problem is probably the most serious problem that can exist right now. It is clear that both children in such families and families will be incomprehensible. But children, of course, in these incomprehensible families will grow up as egoists, spoiled in permissiveness and in the process of certain destruction. This is the path to destruction, to self-destruction, where people will destroy themselves with their own hands. But not all people can understand this, because many people are so not humans anymore. They live so much in the matrix, and they do not think their own thoughts, but they are imposed thoughts, rules, and laws by which they live. This is a very serious problem, which is now leading to the fact that people are no longer manageable. But they are immediately provided with other methods and remedies. These are video games, and today I would also like to talk about this, because this is also one of the provocations and methods for the destruction of the human race and reasonable people, because it leads to complete self-destruction, where people unconsciously kill and destroy themselves with their own hands. They cease to be as individuals, human individuals. I'm running into a lot of cases like this right now. I have students who endure these difficulties and troubles, problems. How to get out of this situation? Well, first, if you start arguing with me and talking about the fact that there are, for example, alcoholic parents, and there should be services that should put children in some places and so on. Yes, I'm not talking about alcoholics now, but again, if these people are alcoholics, who impose this permissiveness of alcoholism on them? Who allows them the permissiveness of taking narcotic substances, which are even legalized in some countries? Who allows it? Who benefits? Who needs it? What does this lead to? To complete degradation. First, causes are created and laws are passed that allow it. Then, when people do it legally, as it done, children are taken away from them because they turn into alcoholics or drug addicts and so on, where children rule over their parents. Don't you think that this is from the category of a madhouse, since it can take place only in a madhouse but not in developed civilized countries? This is madness that leads to self-degradation and destruction of the world, to a fall, to a catastrophe, a planetary catastrophe, which we will soon see, and some countries are already seeing it right today. Therefore, my friends, turn on your brain, understand life correctly, be aware of everything that happens, and do everything so that your family has understanding, love, comfort, harmony, peace, joy, happiness, and purity in your relationship, and your children would be the same. Natalia Vladimirovna, now many children have such a hyperactive character, a lot of children. Now it is quite rare to meet a calm, balanced child. There are quite a lot of children, let's say, inhibited, withdrawn into themselves, with such a touch of autism. Please tell us, why are there such extremes? There is a world of extremes, therefore extremes are all around us. Yes, very active, energy children are coming now more than ever. For what? The world itself, the fourth dimension in which we already live, requires higher energy states of each person. Therefore, our future is people living in higher vibrations. This has been proven by science. Quantum physics already confirms that the world is changing. The proton has decreased by 4 units. The material space is shrinking, and the ethereal space is improving, expanding, and this includes certain higher vibrations of people than people who lived or were born 50 or 60 years ago. A new race of people is coming, a new humanity. And we see with you that indeed our children and grandchildren are the people of the future. But the world is not ready for such children, it is not ready to accept them, and the parents themselves are not ready to accept and raise such children. And during pregnancy, they do something that really does not make it possible to bear a healthy child. For example, they do numerous ultrasounds or take some substances, hormones, or some other pills for carrying a pregnancy, and so on. And this creates certain disturbances in genetics, in the psyche, and especially in the formation of the brain of an embryo, a small child, which then creates certain disturbance processes. This is the first. Secondly, one of the reasons is that the unhealthy lifestyle of parents also creates inhibition processes in the development of the future fetus, the baby that the mother is carrying. So the child is born autistic, or parents have some kind of alcoholic inclinations or genetics that has these problems, or drug addiction, and so on. That is, it is clear that their child will not be born healthy. Another problem is when parents carry children with genitourinary infections. It has already been scientifically proven that genitourinary infections during the development of the fetus disrupt the neural networks of the brain in the fetus. And then children are born with such mental and various autistic retardations. Although autism, my friends, is a certain condition, I would say this: very often I meet children who come from another dimensions, and they cannot adapt to the current state of life. And there are many reasons for this, and, above all, the condition of their parents. But here is another problem. Not all parents are ready to see their mistakes. This is probably the biggest problem. Everyone finds an excuse, everyone finds some explanation for himself, but they do not change the situation. And I think that many parents need to dive into themselves and learn to understand themselves, and learn to see their vices or wrong behavior in social life. Natalia Vladimirovna, tell us, you just said that parents are carrying a child. Tell me, did you say that on purpose? After all, in fact, only mother bears. What is the role of a father? Or, as people say, he did his job and went aside. Or do parents really need to bear a child together? It is necessary to bear it together, and I didn't make a reservation. It is so, my friends. The father who gave the seed, who gave his genetics, also feeds this child with his energy, with his inner state. Therefore, a pregnant woman, the mother of a child, not only fills the child with her energy, but also receives the energy from his father, grandmother, grandfather, and the social environment in which she lives. And this is also passed on to the child. We are seeing this process. Very often I have such cases in the center that young women come who are unable to have children. Then they become pregnant, and I tell them how to properly bear a child. And I always tell my students that you need to create a child. You need to create it inside. Imagine what eyes, eyebrows, face shape it will have, who it will look like, what its character will be, its inner state, what abilities, opportunities, maybe professions he will have. Dream, think, feel it, and you will see that exactly such a child will be born. Friends, you won't believe it. Exactly the kind of child that his mother created him is born. But this mother was helped by a father who was always there, understood mom, stroked her tummy, and also waited for his baby with love. He put his love into it. And a child born in love will live life in love. He will radiate this love. This is the basis of the right birth and bearing and raising a child. Precisely love. See the world through the prism of love. Natalia Vladimirovna, let's, at the end of our programs, voice the question which arose after the feedback on the previous program. In the last broadcast, you said that a lot of people came into this world at the present time from purgatory. Many understood this literally, and people write that as they understood, people from purgatory cannot incarnate here. In all broadcasts, you say that in order to incarnate here, one must at least rise to a certain level in the mentioned worlds. Please tell us about this. This is probably one of the most important mistakes or human vices, to see the world literally. The human mind is accustomed to seeing the world on the one level, in one facet. And these facets are billions. So, nevertheless, what does it mean that people came from purgatory, although they cannot be born from purgatory? So, my friends, when a person finds himself in purgatory, in a timeless state of life, and is among the same vicious people as himself, a series of, let's say, endless, eternal suffering goes through there, and he really perceives them as eternal suffering, since there is no time there. Having already suffered to the extreme state, having already suffered to the full understanding that he can't bear it, he begins to ask for forgiveness and tries to find a way out of the torment in which he has fallen. When the time comes when he can't take it anymore, he calls for help, he calls for the Creator. Then he realizes that it is necessary to turn to the Creator because no one else can help and save him. And spiritual beings come for such people and take them away, raise them higher, into the fourth dimension. But they are still from purgatory. Their experience and their consciousness is based on the programs of purgatory. This person is being lifted higher into higher dimensions, the fourth or fifth dimension. There, this person, this soul that has suffered, goes through a certain process of restoration, and later the person again chooses the opportunity and way to be born again on earth. He has the desire to live material, physical life again. So, new parents are selected for such a person, but they are already selected according to his inner state, his state of purgatory. No one will add anything to you, because you do not have certain programs with which you could perceive a higher, pure dimension of life. You need to develop these programs and inner states here, when you are born on earth, and work on yourself, on your growth and your development. Only then these programs will turn on in you, and you can no longer be a person of purgatory, but a spiritually developed person. Therefore, when a person is born from purgatory, he brings with him those programs, that karma that you call so, those cause and effect relationships that in the next life he still needs to work out, understand, rethink, and realize why this is so, why he ended up in this purgatory, and how to live life in such a way that he doesn't fall into it again. Therefore, yes, friends, people are not born from purgatory. They are raised from purgatory under certain circumstances if they deserve it, and they again go into incarnation. But most of them remain in purgatory to this day. There are people to whom you talk, you explain again and again, but he says, I don't believe in it. I don't want to believe in it. To believe in this means that you need to work on yourself, you need to recognize your vices, you need to become different, you need to act differently, re-educate yourself. But I'm not ready for this. Now everything is permissive, you can drink if you want, you can smoke, you can take drugs, do whatever you want. If you want to play video games, you can play for days until 6 in the morning. Everyone is already going to work and you are still playing with tanks. And by the way, it's advertised. I recently saw an ad where a man in complete delight says, "At 6 o'clock in the morning I finished my position in a video game with tanks." Well, it's understandable that if this is already advertised, this is already a complete degradation of people, complete stupidity. And when a person has become completely stupid, he no longer hears or listens or sees anything and will not do anything. And now there are billions of such people. That is why a great planetary catastrophe is approaching, my friends. But I will return to the topic of education at the end of our program. You are an example not only for other people, but first of all for your children. Never forget about it. And always remember, it's too late to educate at 30. You need to educate when the baby is only 3 months, but not 30 years old. At 30, nothing can be done. A person is already fully formed. This is the basis of understanding. Very often you turn to me with the question, what to do with my child? And I ask, how old is the child? Well, already 27. What kind of child is this? This is an adult, conscious or unconscious person, but still an adult. So raise your children at an early age. And I wish you all the same to understand and realize everything I have said. Write your questions. I will answer all your questions in our programs and in our new videos. I love you and see you soon. Good mood to all of you and wonderful life for everyone, for the whole world.